Hey guys, I get asked about sexual harassment in Japan a bit. The most common question I get relates to the trains, about girls getting touched on trains. It is true that that does happen. It tends to be in the busy periods when the trains are really packed that some of the deviant guys, I guess, will take advantage of that and touch some girls sometimes. Hard to know how often it really happens because I guess a lot of the girls don't talk about it or report it or whatever. But to respond to that, the train companies during the busy periods often have ladies only train carriages, so that sort of solves that. You get on a ladies only train carriage and you'll be okay. Other than that, probably the most common type of sexual harassment in Japan is occupational, so from co-workers and bosses. Although the bigger companies are onto it, because there is anti-sexual harassment laws in Japan, of course, and that stuff on the train isn't harassment. The stuff on the train is obviously sexual assault if they actually touch them. So actual touching is sexual assault, obviously. And the other stuff, the harassment stuff, that tends to be workplace sort of stuff. But they're onto it because there is anti-sexual harassment laws in Japan. So they are onto it and the big companies are onto it. But because Japan's not litigious like other countries where people sue bosses for touching them and that sort of thing, I guess it's a little bit slower. Japan is slower to catch up with the rest of the world as far as stamping it out. And just because of the culture, because of the status thing here, I know in a lot of other countries, if a guy touched up a co-worker, not only would the co-worker complain, but the other staff members, male and female, would probably say, hey, leave her alone. But because of Japanese status, the way the status works in society and that sort of thing, co-workers are probably less likely to say something, particularly if it's the boss. Also, the way that the girls react to it here. I've actually seen a group of people on a work party, a work function, and the boss was drunk and he was chasing an 18-year-old girl around the room, and the co-workers and the boss and the girl herself were all laughing. And it was quite obvious to me that she didn't want to be touched by him. But nobody wants to make a scene. That's the problem, is that the girl doesn't want to make a scene and cause any problems, and the co-workers don't want to make a scene and cause any problems, so it's just better if everybody just laughs. So, I mean, the progressive companies in Japan are onto it and it won't happen, but yeah, it still happens. So the question I get asked all the time is, from girls that are coming to Japan, girls from outside Japan coming to Japan, how should I deal with it? My advice would be, because the Japanese girls normally laugh it off, my advice would be, first of all, if it's something sort of not too serious, just give them a really glaring look. Because Japanese guys aren't aggressive, usually. I mean, there is the odd rapist in Japan, but it's really rare compared with a lot of other countries. So usually they get away with it because it's sort of a joking thing, that joking style sexual harassment. Oh, it's all a joke. And jokingly touch the girls and that sort of thing. So Japanese guys aren't really aggressive the way they do these things. So most Japanese guys, if a Western girl was to give him an evil look, would just shrivel into a ball and disappear, because they're not used to a reaction like that. So that would be my advice. If he's just getting a bit too close or just making you feel uncomfortable, just give him an eyeball, and you'll find that most of them will just disappear if you do that. If required, step it up, go away, leave me alone with a really serious look. And I think 99.9% of cases that would be the end of it, and they'd probably never do it again. So it's not really a problem. You're not going to find yourself getting backed into a corner and forcibly, molested. It would be very, very unlikely, I think, for something like that to happen. It's more likely to be sort of like 14-year-old boys in the playground style behaviour is what it's really like. It's the guy's probably 40 or 50 or 60, but his behaviour is going to be like a 14-year-old schoolboy. So if you reacted the same way as you'd react to a 14-year-old schoolboy, that'll solve it. Go away, leave me alone, and that'd be the end of it. So yeah, it's in Japan, it exists. They're slowly getting down on it, but they're a few years behind the rest of the world on this subject. So If you're coming to Japan, yeah, keep an evil glare in your handbag, and if you need to, just use some stern words, and that will solve it. That will be the end of it in most cases. So in other words, nothing to worry about. You still are safer in Japan than you would be anywhere else. I'm sure of it.